I said, well, you know, this is a project for the whole planet, not just for one organization. This is really for everybody. It's just like it's always been for everybody, but we've kind of kept it to ourselves here, right? So I said, well, yeah, you're right. So what do you suggest? I said, well, how about we create an association that is outside of this particular philosophy and way of thinking that could be universal and can allow everybody that wants to support the idea to connect and work together as volunteers and kind of join forces and kind of do all this great stuff. And say, well, that's a great idea. So we did do that. And that was when the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact was born. And now 15 organizations, mostly North American, some South America, and one new organization, interestingly, from Russia. And they are wonderful people, by the way, scientists from Russia that have been thinking the same thing since the late 90s as an organization. And they say, well, look, space is like humanity is one, space is for everybody. Nations are being like traditional ancient national thinking. They're not thinking about the future and how we really are as humanity and how we there's abundance and unity and all that stuff, like all great thinking. So we got all these groups together. So now we total 15 organizations, nearly 525,000 supporters as an organization, and growing with interest and all sorts of really great connections. It's kind of complicated. You know, having funds and a piece of land is easy, and there's a lot of people around the planet that have done that. But the challenge is it needs to be one that is official by the United Nations and national leaders. It needs to be recognized as an official place for diplomatic contact. It just can't just be a building built somewhere, right? So there's all this work that is more diplomatic and kind of getting noticed and getting engaged with politicians. That's why we have a team in Geneva that does that. We have a team of architects that works on design and development. We have a pretty famous city planner working with us like nonstop. I'm there with a bunch of volunteers, and we have a bunch of wonderful community leaders, including Zenka here and Costa and several others that are super excited about it. We just welcome them, like, look, come on in. Yes, we're all going to work together because it's all volunteers. It's always have been volunteers, and to influence the planet into developing into the mindset of a truly international or galactic civilization, which means stop the squabbles between us nations completely, because that's not the behavior of a mature civilization, right? People will want to visit this, so we will have a duplicate, a little scale, like a little smaller scale to scale down the expense a bit, but a duplicate that will be physically visitable outside of the actual embassy space, because you have to understand also it's extraterritorial space. That means if you step on there, you're actually trespassing on territorial land or extraterrestrial land, like whatever nation or planet, like, because that's how the law works, right? If you go to the Canadian embassy, like I'm assuming most of you are probably in the States, you're stepping onto Canadian land, right? Because that's the Canadian embassy. It belongs to Canada. So if we build an embassy for ETs and give it extraterritoriality, it means that land belongs to that extraterrestrial civilization, and the building also belongs to them, right? Convention center, condos, places to sell food, like restaurants and purveyors and things like that. So there's going to be a whole village around it, right, as part of the design. And in fact, one of the designs is circular, like this. And since we're changing the designs, and it really depends on the land itself, it may not be circular. It could be hexagonal. It could be square. This is just kind of a concept. And you see these structures in white. This is like more futuristic, building kind of designs, but they are kind of that village convention centers and whatnot. And here you can see, I don't know if it's a bit too small here. You see there's a duplicate embassy right here for visitors and a visitor center. And the embassy proper is here, like right in the middle of that wall place, right? So that's the idea. That's the concept of it. And again, the architects are have actually developing new blueprints and new that are a bit more modern, since the old ones were old, and probably also a 3D walkthrough, which will all be presented at the conference on October 7th, officially by the team of architects and the president, Danielle. So we'll be doing a public reveal there with the most up-to-date information. And if we're a bit lucky, and if the countries that have approached us are timely, because we can't force their hands, we may be able to reveal where or who's going to have accept. So I did mention to Zenka a while back condos, because that's something that gets me excited, because I want to live there, like where and as part, we are also entrepreneurs, so we are logical. Like, yeah, there's $50 million to build the embassy, but this whole thing is going to cost even more than that, like for the development. So we've been talking with developers, for example, that are into the project. They want to sell. I mean, they're in business. If there's interest in the area, and they can sell condos, they'll build them, right? So that's a way to kind of fund more development. And like Zenka mentioned, part of the ideology is to evolve as a civilization. It's not just to build a building. Plans to have what we call Scientopolis, right? And that's just a project name, so it's not necessarily what it's going to be called. It should be like that name, that concept. But basically, it's a small city that is designed to support humanity's advance in science and understanding of the universe, possibly near the embassy, or it could be at different locations, maybe several locations. And the idea of that is to hopefully evolve enough in our ideology that scientists and engineers and creatives and artists could go there and freely give their time to benefit the whole of humanity without any economic interest or concerns, right? So basically, a mecca of knowledge and understanding to help us evolve, perhaps in some cases with some glimmer of knowledge from the visitors from elsewhere, perhaps guiding us a bit. That crop circle that really resembles that embassy actually appeared about 2 days after we showed the plans to our team and approved it. So our plans for that particular embassy preceded the appearance of that crop circle, and I think was that one in the UK. And we were very surprised because, well, we're not expecting crop circles to appear that resembled our design and our blueprint, but we made that first. So, which means they're waiting for us to extend the olive branch, extend a hand and say, hey, most of us are, or all of us are really ready for this. We want to meet with you. Come on in, which is part of the idea behind the embassy proper, right? The ET embassy. If we are able, and I believe we are, to convince national leaders at the UN to change the rules of the Vienna Convention to allow an ET civilization, not only earthly civilization, to get extraterritoriality and all the technical bits, they have a discussion. They agree that the embassy that will be built will be, a proper embassy for diplomatic missions. It automatically means almost that we are ready as a civilization to acquiesce and to meet one.
Because I think you're right, and I want to clarify your call to action here. If it is true that we are in this collective soup and we get to experience whatever we want to experience as a civilization, we choose what we want to experience. If we want to experience World War III because we're watching TV, we will experience World War III because we're watching TV. Because remember, emotion is the driving force of reality creation. So when we put forth this project of an ET embassy, that catches, like you said, it's this iconic, incredible, mimetic, like, wow, conversation piece, right? Because it's something we all like, wow, wouldn't that be great? So it's very important that we spread the idea of this conference, that we go to that we go to the conference, that we spread the idea of the embassy, and that we start the imagination wheels. I mean, I remember when I first heard about it, it's like, oh, it's a great idea. It's like, and Mark Sims and all these guys had been like, oh, we got to do diplomatic relations because we don't want to just have like another war again. You know what I mean? So this is our job as creators in this movement to really, I was talking this weekend with some people who were talking about what it takes to create new things into reality. And the number one thing they said was, thank the universe as if it already happened, right? And if you can't in your heart be super excited when you say, thank you so much for the ET embassy, if you can't do that with an elevated emotion, which is completely important, then there's something in your subconscious mind that's not believing or not allowing or not allowing, right? Because all of a sudden there's new answers to old questions. There's new healing to old wounds. There's new adventures to be had, right?
That's from two different nations to agree to call one. So to call a convention that has a discussion around the protocols, you only need two diplomats from two different nations. That's it. So you don't need 180 just to have the conversation. You have to have two. And then they say, okay, well, let's do that. And then they call upon the others to participate, and some may participate or not. That's how it kind of works. Like we said before, the idea is to get humanity to convene and agree that this is like as a planet, that this is a good thing. So we do want to go through that route. But on a technical level, any nation that wants to have the embassy built can give extraterritoriality without the approval of the United Nations. Learned, and what gave me a lot of peace in my journey to create like the golden age, is that everything's connected. Everybody's connected. The whole universe is connected. Everything is balanced, and this is just scientific fact. Like even at the quantum level, at every level you can imagine, gravity, waves, energy, matter, everything. And by the way, all matter is energy, and all energy and matter is wavelengths, interchangeably. And this is just a scientific fact. Ask any competent scientist, they're going to tell you the same thing. It's not metaphysics. Okay. So it's all interconnected, all in balance. So if you change something here, it changes something everywhere, right? Butterfly effect is another example of that. So if we want to have a welcoming planet, a planet of happiness and joy, well, it's really hard. I don't know if you've tried to change other people. It's pretty tough. It's nearly impossible. One would say it probably is, right? But we just happen to have a wonderfully designed brain that is plastic. Neuroplasticity, right? We can change ourselves pretty easily. So if you change yourself to be a happier, well-meaning, compassionate individuals, learn from mom, right? Then you're influencing the whole universe with those energies. And that's something everybody can do. You don't need to build a building or raise money or anything like that. You can just do that. And that's massive. If everybody would focus on that, just making themselves happy and content and compassionate, we change the whole world. And the extraterrestrials that are looking, it's like, oh, cool. Everybody's unified and at peace, collaborating and passionate. Let's say hi.